Say it louder.
Big Lake Now.
There you go, and here she is.
Hey guys, it is time for Big Lake Now. This is our twice weekly program that keeps you in the know with local events, issues, and causes. Here, our guests include public officials, local leaders, and subject matter experts. And this morning, we have a local angling expert in the studio. Steve Daniel is here. Good morning, Steve. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Bianca. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Well, he is in the studio because it's an exciting time of the year for anglers. And this year, especially, is an exciting time of the year for Clewisonians and anglers all around the state of Florida.
Yeah, we got the Forest Wood Cup going on out in Arkansas right now, actually in Hot Springs, Arkansas, on Lake Ouachita. And we got a lot of Clewiston fishermen out there. Scott Martin's out there. In fact, Scott Martin won the Forest Wood Cup on Lake Ouachita back in 2011, I think it was, going back a little ways. Mm-hmm. And then we got the McMillan brothers, Brandon McMillan, who's in here. He's been fishing these things for a few years now. And Jared, this was his rookie season out there, and he actually led Angler of the Year up until about 4 or 5 events. So a young guy doing really, really well on the FLW Tour. And we got John Cox, who is not from the Clewiston area, but just a little bit north of us up there. He actually won the Forest Wood Cup on up in Alabama here just a couple of years ago. So got some really good representation from Florida. And we've already got, I think, 4 Forest Wood Cups in the state of Florida, more than any other state, and so we're looking for the 5th.
Yeah, and that was my next question. Speaking of wins, anglers from which state have accounted for the most wins in the Forest Wood Cup? And now we know it is Florida.
It is Florida, and looking for another one. Got a really good chance of getting another one down here and getting to Clewiston. Clewiston, I think, is the only city that has 2. They had mine in 1996, Scott Martin's, in 2011, I believe is when his was, and looking to bring another one home.
Yeah, now you won in 1996, and that was the first year of the Cup?
That was the inaugural season of the FLW Tour. And it's, man, it goes back a long way. It don't seem like it's that long ago, but 1996 is a long time.
Well, you said it, not me. Yeah, I see a picture of your banner hanging up. So every year, I guess, in the hall, they hang all of the winners' banners up, and yours is first in line.
Mine's the very first one, and that's kind of a cool deal, too. They're big, life-size banners hanging in the arena. There'll be 20, 30,000 people at the event. It's a big outdoor show. It's a lot more to it than just the event itself. There's a lot of people there. And, it goes back a long time. I mean, goodness, 1996 when they first started. A lot of people don't even know where the FLW actually started from. Mm-hmm. It actually started in Minnesota.
Okay.
It started in Minneapolis. And what happened, I was on the Evinrude Pro staff at the time, and we actually went and did a benefit tournament for the Ronald McDonald House. They sent the whole Evinrude Pro staff up there, me and Larry Nixon, Denny Brower. Gosh, there was a handful of us got to go up there and fish in this. And it was started by a gentleman he was a newscaster up there, Don Shelby is the guy's name. And it was an event to raise money for the Ronald McDonald House. And the University of Minnesota was one of the biggest hospitals for bone marrow transplants, and these kids had to stay in the hospital for sometimes a year after having these things done to them, and they needed a place for the families to stay and all this. So that's what the Ronald McDonald House was all about, having places where it didn't cost anybody, these families, anywhere to stay. So Don Shelby did this up there for several years. And anyway, we got to go up there and fish in this event, and goodness, Hulk Hogan was there. I know you know a little bit about Hulk Hogan. And but anyway, Randy Savage, all those guys are from Minnesota, so they were a big part of this. But what happened, we go to a weigh-in. Now, normal weigh-ins, you had a guy go across the stage. You got a guy coming in, gets out of his boat, gets his fish up, goes across the stage. They talk to him for a minute, and he goes on. Well, at this event, we go in there, man, they got a rock star coming in on a motorcycle through the fog, playing music at the weigh-ins. And then when the anglers come across the stage, they're playing music and songs. They let the guys pick out the songs that they want to.
They made it a show.
It was an event. It was a show. It was like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it all came from. And then shortly, the very next time they had that, we were at the event, and I think it was Guido Hibden's wife, Stella, said, I want you to look out there. She was talking to my wife. All the wives travel with us. And she said, I want you to look in the front row. Man, everybody in the front row was a heavyweight. It was Jerry McInnes, ESPN, JM Productions. It was Forrest Wood. It was all the guys. Forrest Wood started this. In fact, it was named Forrest L. Wood, FLW. He was the owner of Ranger Boats. Mm-hmm. And so it evolved from that. Now they call it the Fishing League Worldwide. It's all changed, and anyway, but it's still the FLW Tour. It used to be the Walmart FLW Tour. But anyway, the next year the FLW Tour started, and that's what it was. It was a production. It was the guys had to pick the song, and they made it a show. It wasn't just another weigh-in, and that's how it all evolved. That's how the Elite Series came about. And now it's really a production and a show for people who want to come to the weigh-in to see more than just people catching fish or weighing in fish. Mm-hmm. It's a whole production.
And I see that even this year there's a free concert on day 3 with Justin Moore. He's going to be singing. And when you talk about the music that shows up when people are weighing in, I think of people going up to bat. In Major League Baseball, they all play their song when they go up to hit that home run. So that's really cool. They're bringing this fun and excitement to fishing. Now, we've heard the FLW name here on the station before, of course. We had an angler come in during, 2 months ago when the fishing season started. And I think, was it the first FLW qualifier for the year was here on the lake? They kicked it off on the lake.
Yes, I believe it was. And, they've been coming here for years. In fact, it was, they're not coming here this year, though. They're going to Lake Seminole and maybe another lake in Florida. But this used to be the starting point for the FLW Tour. In fact, in 1996, that was the first year that ESPN ever filmed a fishing tournament. Jerry McInnes, Tommy Sanders, all those guys came here. And it was a learning curve for those guys. The very first one, Mike Sermon from Fort Lauderdale actually won that event. He owned Gambler Bait Company, and he was from Fort Lauderdale. He won that event. I think I finished like 17th. I had the biggest fish I ever caught in the tournament was in that event, weighed 10.5. I zevoed the first day, caught 4 the next day. I finished 17th out of like 200 boats because nobody was catching. It was so cold, nobody was catching any fish. Well, they came twice that year. They came the next month, and it went out of Okatani up on the north end of the lake. And I beat Roland Martin by 8 ounces. To this day, I say that's one of probably my biggest win because that's when Roland was fishing the lake a lot. He was really into Lake Okeechobee at that time, and just beating him by 8 ounces on Lake Okeechobee, I think I won $30,000. I say only $30,000. That was a lot of money. Still is a lot of money, but to beat Roland Martin here on ESPN was probably my biggest thing. I did win again here in 2000. I won $110,000 that week. So that was my biggest win of all time, and it was in 2000. Mm-hmm. And that's when the Kellogg's team first came out, and I was the first one to be in a Kellogg's boat. So that goes back it's on the Kellogg's box here. But it's evolved a lot since then. That first event, I'll never forget it. GPS had just come on the market. I had a little GPS unit, and one of my customers actually gave it to me. It was about the size of a brick, and this thing had a little 2-inch screen, little bitty screen. Now these guys got 15-inch screens. Mm-hmm. I mean, they go down through there. It looks like this radio station going down the boat, down the lake in a boat. They got these big screens everywhere. One's got GPS, one's got side scan sonar, one's got 360 sonar. I mean, these guys, those things do everything but catch your fish for you, and cook your fish after you catch them. But anyway, it's come a long way since then, and I'll never forget going across and learning how to do stuff. That the kids today can't even comprehend it. Not fishing without GPS or side scan sonar and all this stuff. When we had a little bitty flasher unit, and it was more about, I don't know, it was just different back then. It's evolved a lot. And now, goodness, the guys don't even, some of them don't even fish anymore unless they're seeing them on their sonar, which is, I can't even comprehend that. But going back to, I stopped fishing the tours and kind of retired from the tournament fishing part. That's when I started doing my radio show and just guiding and being able to stay here at home with Deb here on Lake Okeechobee. But it's evolved a lot since I retired from tournament fishing, and goodness, just the technology part of it. And I noticed the weights in all the tournaments have really, really gone up. In fact, I talked to Brandon McMillan. They just got back from the tournament up at St. Clair up in Michigan, which is right above Lake Erie. And he said, he was delivering packages. You know, he's our UPS driver. He delivered packages to my house, and we've talked about it just a little bit. He said, I watched a video where you made a top 5 on there. He said, and the way guys can get information now, they can go back and watch these old shows and see what the guys were doing on these lakes. Mm-hmm. They can sit there in front of their computer at home and get more education than we ever got.
Like watching film for football.
Exactly. But it's changed so much. And he said, I watched a video where you caught 17 pounds a day and made the top 5. He said, I caught almost 19 pounds a day and didn't make the top 100. That's how much the guys they're really good out there. Mm-hmm. The equipment's better, and, you know, the fishermen are just more educated and better educated. And these young guys are really hard to beat. People ask me all the time, said, do you ever think about going out? I wouldn't go out there and compete against those guys for no amount of money anymore, because I'd have to start all over again, and you can't catch up with technology.
No, and they were raised, like you said, on this new technology and these new tools. But even that, it does give someone an edge if they're using that. But if everybody's using it, it just puts you all back even again.
It really does, and the guys are so good. Jared McMillan, I interviewed him on my show right after he first started, and he told me, he said one of the best things his dad ever taught him. And Jimmy McMillan, you know, he was killed in a robbery down in Belglade. He actually won the FLW tournament here on Lake Okeechobee prior to that. Oh. And so anyway, Jared told me, he said, one of the best education I ever got was when my dad took me out on Lake Okeechobee, turned off all that GPS and all that new stuff, and showed me how he used to do it. He said that was one of the best things ever happened to him, learning how to triangulate, going out in the middle of the lake and learning how to find a spot out there the size of a boat when you're in open water, learning how to, the kids today don't have to do that. They got it. I mean, goodness, the mapping on these things, you can go across Lake Okeechobee now. There's some reefs that run across Lake Okeechobee that are solid rock, limestone, and there's little cuts in it. Now you go out, you got this map. You don't have to get a chart anymore. You just look at this map on your screen, and it'll show you where those little cuts are. When you go in there and the lines start getting closer together, you start to see the bottom come up. It's so much easier now than it was back when we had to do a lot of guessing.
Right. Now, do you think that intuition, I mean, back when you were fishing, when you had to do a lot of this guessing, I'm sure intuition had to play a major role. There was just some kind of sixth sense that an angler, a really good angler, has. Do you think that intuition still plays a role with all of these tools now?
I think if it doesn't, it should, because I really think what sets these guys apart from everybody else, everybody thinks, well, these are the top pros in the country, you know, the Bassmaster Elite guys and the FLW Tour guys that are out there on the road all the time. They're on the water all the time. When you do that, you start picking up, you start sensing things. This is one of the hardest things ever to explain to someone that's never done it, is how sometimes you just know. You know, you just get this feeling, and the only reason you do is the fact that, you know, you've been out there so much, you start to feel things that the guy that just fishes on the weekend can't even comprehend because he's not out there all the time. I always think Rick Clunn was one of the smartest guys I ever knew, and he's still fishing the tour. He don't do very well anymore, but he's one of these old school guys. And he said I had him on my show recently just talking about that. He actually won a tournament a couple years ago. But he said, the guys ask me all the time, says, why don't you catch them like you used to? He said, I do. Those guys just catch them better than I used to. But Rick always, he always got into the deeper part of it. He liked camping. He liked staying on the water. He didn't want to stay in a motel. He wanted to be out there in the environment. And he always said, you know, it's like the Indians. You know, back in the frontier days, you know, when you had these big forts and you had these all these military people there, and you know, who did they rely on the most? They relied on the Indian guides to feed them. They actually, the Indians actually took their hunters out because they lived in that environment. They could feel things that hunter that stayed in the fort could never feel. They lived with the animals they were trying to capture or kill for food. And that kind of just